Ashwini Rathi, and I take this privilege to welcome you all to the first edition of the Nahar Jito Bookathon presented in association with the Raisoni Foundation. Let me introduce our today's author and podcaster, Ms. Mohua Chinappa ma'am. It's a pleasure having you, ma'am. I will just give a brief introduction of our today's energetic speaker. Mohua is an author, podcaster, voice-over artist, and branding specialist. She has over 15 plus years in leadership positions as a public relations corporate communications specialist. Mohua has a 360-degree experience in the entire spectrum of managing a brand. In 2018, she embarked on a new journey as a writer. She began a blog out of a cafe called Moody Moo. She writes from her heart as her blogs and articles extensively focus on brands that endorse gender equality, nostalgia, arts, and crafts of India. She now hosts an extremely successful podcast called The Mohua Show, which is available on multiple platforms. She is also a renowned author. She has very successful two books. She's currently on an entrepreneurial journey as a believer. Her endeavor is to give opportunities to individuals to share their stories, to inspire change, and create a platform for the unheard voices that need recognition and validation. A warm welcome to you, Moha ma'am. And before we move on, I would just like to know, just let our audience know about your journey as an author and which challenges did you face?
Thank you so much for having me, on the show today and being part of Raisoni and OCLF. I've already been a part of the festival last year, and it was amazing, to meet so many students. I met many other authors also there, so it's wonderful to be back all over again. To just talk to you a little bit about my journey, I don't know how to call myself. I think I should call myself an accidental author, if there is a word like that. I did not even know that, I have so many stories inside me because I was a homemaker for very, very long. So beyond writing report cards and, beyond writing really household chore list, I kind of did not really endeavor to write books or think about rebooting myself all over again. Difficulties, of course, there were huge difficulties when I began because I think nobody takes a homemaker very seriously. Across India, they think most people think that you will not have anything very intelligent to contribute because you are actually not a contributor to the economy, and whatever work that you do at home, that I don't think yet has got enough validation or recognition from your own family members. So to expect that from the outside world, I think it's too much of a expectation. So I reached a stage when my son left to study abroad in 2017, and that 1 year I couldn't sleep because I was so heartbroken, and not heartbroken, but my sense of purpose was gone. And he was the purpose for very, very long. I was so busy raising him, which was the most blissful years. And then after that, I started thinking what to do. I tried to get a job here and there, but nobody thought I could write. Nobody thought I could, put together any. I would have any thought beyond doing lunches and beyond, meeting a few people or thinking of recipes. So I sent out a few columns to old colleagues of mine, and they were not accepted. One of the magazines didn't accept it. But the whole great part about digital India is this: the digital world, internet is this, that it's all so democratized now, and that anybody can restart a career as a writer or a filmmaker. We have iPhones, photography can be done, anything can be done today. So somebody told me that there is WordPress, and that's how I began blogging, and I didn't know what to call it. So somebody said कि Mohua नहीं बोलते कुछ और नाम देते हैं. So that's how I thought Moody Mo, and of course I have evolved from that time to now. There's a lot of changes in me, and that's when I began my blog on gender and on arts and crafts, which even today remains a very, very topic close to my heart. And yes, I could not do it from my home because nobody took me seriously when I was sitting down and writing. They would constantly come and tell me dal khatam ho gaya hai, shakar khatam ho gayi hai,
Yes,
they would
yes,
knock the door,
totally.
which they will never ever do, with a man. They would do that with me, because they were so sure that I am not doing anything that difficult or that important for them to not be able to disturb me. I don't blame them because they were used to this entire setup. So, I went to a cafe and I began writing from there. And from there, the book happened, and the rest is history.
Yeah, your story is really inspiring because this happens like before I was having the same conversation with Kiran ma'am, who was also the speaker on the session, and the same story. Being in the house, she also told the same thing that anytime the servant would come and ask, "Khane mein kya banana hai?" and all those stuff. So this is such a regular thing with every person. And having said that, to overcome this and to begin the journey is itself an achievement, right? Yes, definitely. So, would like to know the story behind how did you get your first book published?
My first book to be published was a very difficult task because I met a publisher who took a lot of money from me month on month for 9 months, and there was no book. And so I got cheated of money with
Okay.
so yes, yeah, and she met me at a get together, and I wasn't even sure whether people would be interested in reading my stories, but I used to write stories every time I wrote a blog, and then I got in touch with the first place that I started my writing journey was in 2019 when I did my solo, trip ever, all alone among strangers in a writing workshop. वो भी बहुत हिम्मत की जरूरत थी क्योंकि
Okay.
कभी अकेले गए नहीं कभी भी स्ट्रेंजर्स के
Mm-hmm.
बीच में बट मैं राइटिंग वर्कशॉप में गई थी द हिमालयन राइटिंग रिट्रीट. And then I met Chetan Mahajan, who was the first, who he conducts. They're a fantastic forum for writers. And I went there and I started writing. That's when Chetan kind of really, helped me with the underconfidence I had. So he was
Okay.
a person I reached out to, and he said that he said, "Who's your publisher? Who's?" He started asking me the relevant questions which I did not know how to ask. And
Okay.
then, yeah, and then of course it took me very long to pull away because I had already given so much of money and the book wasn't there. And then I found, the world, like I said, that, people have a lot of, there are self-publishing houses. And of course, I was ambitious and I wanted to go ahead with a big publisher. But again, there are a lot of, you will have to know people, you have to go through the entire process. And, so at that juncture, I really didn't know anyone. And so I met my first publishers, who did textbooks actually at that time. So I was the first,
Okay.
nonfiction book that they had, taken up. They are called Cursive Publishers, and they were fantastic people. So they published my book, and of course, the book went on to, be loved by so many people, and I'm so eternally grateful about that. And the book also went on to win an award, the PVLF Readers' Choice
Okay.
Award. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes, and then people have gotten in touch saying that the stories have touched them. So I think, when as writers we write, we hope that our stories can make another person not feel alone. And
Definitely. Yes.
yeah, so that's how my writing journey happened, and that's how I met my first publisher. And of course, now my third book is coming out, which is, it's found a home with Rupa Publishing. It's been a
Okay.
journey. It's been step by step. Rupa is among the top publishers in India. And I cannot be more grateful, to Divakar, who has agreed to publish the book, under the Rupa Publishing head.
All right. All right. That's great. That's great. So, but since you have reached to the third book now and under a very good publishing house, so let us know the inspiration for your previous two books. If only it was Spring Everyday and Nautanki Sala. So, how did you come to the theme? How did you decide on the topic? And how did you decide on the title? We would like to know from you.
So, the first book, my inspiration has always been my son. He is the first one actually who got me to start understanding that it is my Zen space when I write. I love writing. I
Okay.
write when I'm in despair. I write when I'm sad. I write when I'm alone. I write when I'm happy. I think writing is my companion for life. And I cannot be more eternally grateful for having found this companion who will never ever ditch you, who will never ever give you mental problems, who will never
Yes.
ever hurt you,
Yes.
and it will just be there non-judgmental, listening to whatever that you want to say and write. So my inspiration has always been my child. I've dedicated all my books to my one and only son, and what was the question you asked me about?
Inspiration for the both the books. How did
Yeah.
you decide
So
on the theme and the
oh,
title?
yeah.
Yeah.
So, if my first book is actually a book of short stories, of 15 short stories, where, we deal with displacement. We talk about the marginalized in society. And that has been a subject that's been very close to my heart because I just feel, because my parents were, my father and mother both are displaced people from East Bengal. And
Okay.
I've seen what displacement has done to them, and these stories don't really go out into the mainstream media. And now people are talking about it, and still I think there's not been enough conversation, at least for children like us who were born in the 70s and 80s from Delhi and Punjab, from Punjab and from Bengal. We've had a lot of our parents who were refugees, and the
Okay.
kind of mental trauma that they took forward, and the people that we met. So that I also wrote about. I wrote about the Northeast, where again there was an exodus of the Bengalis, where we were asked to leave our home state because there was this huge infighting between the tribals and the non-tribals. And so that displacement also had a major impact in my life. And so that's how I decided to pen those stories of the amazing, ordinary people I met with extraordinary stories. And
Okay.
that's how I decided to write the book. And poetry is something that I write every day. And this was a set of poems that I had written, and they are political, they are emotional, they are spiritual thing. They are about the environment. They are about the Manipur violence of the two women who were groped, and that stays on even today. That in 2024, we are still talking about it, and it is such a
Yes.
shame as a woman,
Yes.
and it is also about. It is about the way forests are being. I mean, look at us, the way the temperatures in Bangalore changed. Look at the temperatures today in Delhi. There's so many people who are on the roads in the north of India, the heat wave that's happening. And, so it affects me somewhere. And I feel very, very, and there is no other way for me to express apart from writing. So that's
Yes.
how the book, if only it was spring every day. It's a book, it's very hopeful. But of course, poetry that speaks about all of this that's happening around us.
And your second book, Nautanki Sala?
That's my first book. My first book is Nautanki
Okay.
Sala.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
And the
right.
second book, If Only It Was Spring Every Day, it's a book of poetry.
It's yeah, yeah. Okay. So now amidst writing books, why podcast? Like what made you shift to this platform?
Uh, Again, I mean, I really, it's very difficult for me to really answer why I shifted into this platform. I was a journalist when I was very young. I started my career as a journalist, and
Okay.
when I look back and I recall, also then I had a very long stint in public relations as the national head for a very large advertising agency's PR division. So I am essentially a marketing PR person also. I've had many years of experience there, and I do realize that the world of media and consumption of content is changing. Newspapers are going to become extinct in some years to come. People are really going to start reading on their mobile phones, on their laptops, and also the world of audio podcasts was growing. And I really didn't know that it would go on to become so large. I really just started reading most of my writings, out of a small little studio in Bangalore. It was on the fifth floor, and they were charging the least, when I used to go up that fifth floor through lots and lots of steps. And I didn't know how many people would even listen to it. If 10 people listened to it, I used to feel extremely elated. And so that's how the podcasting business began. And I had heard, because I used to go to the cafe and everybody was at least 15 years younger to me, and everybody was talking podcast during that time, in 2018. And
Okay.
so I said, let me just figure out what is it all about, and I began my career, as a journalist by doing an interview with the late Kushwant Singh. And I had the most seamless interview. So I think those memories stayed back, that it was, I was really in my elements when I had this conversation with him. People opened up, when they spoke to me. And so that's how the whole idea of doing interviews. And of course, I was also very sick and tired of only very, very successful people. You read their stories and not really ordinary people
True.
who've gone ahead and done extraordinary stories. For them to go into a Times of India or to go into a very large mainstream newspaper, they are not going to be given that space. And that's the space I wanted to cover through the podcast. And of course, it evolved over time. It did not happen overnight. And I do believe that this industry is only growing. It is growing at
Yes.
an unbelievable pace. I have an amazing team who work with me, and I'm really hoping to take them forward as I take the podcast forward. So, just to give you a little bit of a history, I mean, it is an estimated 505 million people will listen to podcasts in 2024. That's the
Oh, yeah.
prediction.
That's
Yeah.
yeah,
So it is
a
like
very
it's
big
a
number.
yeah, the this format has grown to a 25 billion industry. So we are really talking about a very, very large industry, and we're all players. So let's see where we go with this.
At least you have started your journey to this amazing medium which is coming up. That is the
Yeah.
podcasting medium, definitely. So, what are some of the biggest challenges you have faced in your journey as a podcaster, and what have you learned from them?
So there are many challenges I faced as a podcaster. To begin with, I think I did not know technology very well because I was a homemaker for very, very long. And today, and in meetings, in the past, I used to not even understand what they meant by SEO. I did not even understand what they meant by hashtags. I did not even have a LinkedIn profile, in spite of all the great work that I've done, with my advertising days and in PR, because I think those days it was not there. LinkedIn was there, but it wasn't really that popular. And and Facebook and Instagram and all of that I joined only in 2016 or 17. So I had no accounts till then. So definitely it's a challenge every day because it's a very dynamic. You see, it's every day evolving. For example, Spotify now has started video podcasts also. So you have to constantly stay abreast, which isn't easy because technology doesn't come as easily to me as it comes for a youngster. But I will tell you that I don't think I have any complaints about starting at this phase because there's a certain maturity that I come with over life's experiences, and that also helps. Some of my guests who are also very established people in the business to open up and talk. It comes from a very mature space. And I don't think I would have been more happier, or more grateful to have started this journey at such a late age that I have done.
Okay, that's great. So, since you said that your guests are very established and they are really relatable people as well, so how do you select your guests to ensure a rich and varied dialogue on your show? And which are the key qualities you look for that while choosing your guest?
So, the show, if has to have an alignment with change makers. And it doesn't matter what is the size of your, work or what kind of achievements you've had. If you've been able to make that change even among 10 people around you in the community, we will definitely have you on our podcast. And then, of course, the podcast evolved. We also have a literature lounge, which is a podcast that we are doing along with Rupa Publishing. It is for authors. And in that podcast, we are very clear that we want to bring in specially abled authors. I don't think anybody has done that till now. And we've had the privilege and the honor of having amazing authors who've really gone beyond their, physical disabilities and written books. So we've had somebody called, Major A.K. Singh, who had lost a leg and he went sailing all across the world. And, he wrote that book. So, yeah. And then we've also had, another author who's visually impaired. And she went on to become an aerobic teacher, aerobic dancer, and she's gone ahead and written a book. And it was, I had the goosebumps when I was listening to her, and I felt, what is it that I complain about? Because she was so, so positive as a person. We've also had another, author who came on, and she lost both her legs, in an accident at the age of 22. And she started the wheelchair accessibility, for disabled people. And she's written a book. And so, yeah. These are the kind of people we bring in. And because you see literature festivals also, people need to know you. You need to have to make a mark to be
Yes.
in the festival, right? So
Yes.
what literature lounge does is that we are not we try and look at people who've done authentic work, inspirational work, and it doesn't matter how many books you sold. If you want to market your book and you want to talk about your inspiration and your journey, as a author, you are most welcome to get in touch with us on the Literature Lounge, and we'll have you on board with us. And on the Mohua show, we've had, SMEs, the small and medium-sized entrepreneurs, from India, and they are a very, very large chunk. And it's been great to have them on our show and talk to us about how they started from such a small business to become who they have become, and provide employment for the little economy, the community around them. So they are inspirational. They're change makers. They are people who started new businesses. We've had people from the queer community who've come ahead and spoken about these words. So diversity, equality and change makers is our main
Okay.
source of inspiration for the podcast. So those are the pillars that we stand on.
Okay, so you might also get requests, or you might also get the feedback, and that would also be helping you to choose your guest as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in your opinion, what makes podcasting an effective medium for personal development and empowerment?
Well, personal development, I don't know, but it's definitely opened up my world. I started the podcast during the pandemic, and this is the joy of technology. And, with technology, I was doing interviews with people in London, in parts of UK, in Africa,
Okay.
yeah, in New York, in Delhi, in Bombay, in Dhanbad, in all across. And I think it cuts across geography, time, and it is phenomenal to be able to have an interview format podcast. That is what I endeavor to do, and that's what we've been successful with.
All right. What are you more excited about, writing or being on a podcast?
Well, my first love is writing.
It's
I love to write. Writing for me is a very spiritual exercise. It is about me and my thoughts alone. Writing is something that is my first love after my son. And yeah, my first love is my son, and then is my writing. But they both are, always shoulder to shoulder.
yeah.
Podcasting for me is extremely interesting because it is an entrepreneurial journey. And honestly, I have such amazing people around me right now. I really hope that I can make a difference to their lives, and that's what I pray for. अभी तो वक्त आ गया है वापस देने के लिए, and it's a time for me to give back, and for all that I've received, the grace that I have, from the Almighty, for me to the universe, I don't know what you want to call that, God,
Yes.
divine intervention, for me to be having found a purpose in life all over again. Many people struggle and they can't
Yes.
find that. So I'm very, very grateful. So right now, I'm really hoping that the podcast will grow, and people who are working around me will definitely earn better with this. And that is what I pray and, pray every day for.
All right. So, can you share any story or feedback from your listener that highlight the impact of your show, or it might have impacted in their personal or professional lives?
So yeah, when I go out and people tell me about my podcast, they've heard it and they really like it. So I think I go through this entire syndrome where you don't believe what you're doing, and then because you always feel that it could have been better, you could have done it a little better. So when people come and tell you that they've really enjoyed a show, they've really enjoyed a certain episode, so you're like spellbound. So I was
Yeah.
just recently in London because I've also I'm a member of a London non-profit think tank called Bridge India, and with that I had gone and in Piccadilly at Waterstones at the bookstore I had done an interview with Sanjay Roy, who's really the father of the literature festival, the Jaipur Literature Festival, the largest in the world,
The
ever.
largest one.
And
Yes.
yeah, and so there, I met publishers who had heard about the podcast. People who come back and tell you that, oh, we really enjoyed this episode and it was really, really wonderful. Friends, people who tell you that when they go out for their walks, they listen to the podcast and it helps them, sometimes find answers and hear the stories of others. So yeah, these are the things that really help me egg on. It isn't easy because it is a very solo journey as an entrepreneur, and especially as a rebooter. But when you hear people they enjoy it, you go on and get charged.
All right. All right. So, it's very important to meet the right people at the right time to just move on to the journey. So, there might be some of the people in the audience who would like to start the podcast. So, what advice and skills would you recommend to someone looking to start their own podcast? Like how to start, how to create good content, how to monetize your podcast? What would you suggest to them?
So to begin with, you know what, don't get caught with the fact that you have a good voice or you don't have a good voice. It really doesn't matter. I think what happens with a podcast is that you need to find your niche, because when you find your niche, it'll be easier for you to market it. And once that niche is there, because I was all over the place initially when I had begun. Now it's taking a shape of its own. So don't make that mistake. Please find a niche. So for example, if it's medical, or it's accounting, or it's science, or it's religion, or it's it is books that you want to talk about. So find your niche, follow that through, and it will not grow with one episode or two episode. You will have to be patient with it, because it took me, what, probably we are 188 episodes or a little more than that right now. I'm not too sure, but yes, that's the number. And now I know that people are recognizing the episode. You also have to use other mediums to promote it. So for example, I'm a columnist. I always write at the end of the column about my podcast. I also try and market that on my Instagram pages. And and as far as monetizing goes, once you have a cumulative number of downloads, because anybody who will want to invest in your podcast will want to see those details, right? So the minute you can share all of that and the numbers are good, and you have something to show, I don't think marketers are going to ever shy away from partnering with you in taking their products forward. So that is something that you need to do. But patience is the game. You'll have to
Patience
be
is the
patient.
game. Very true. 188 podcast. I mean episodes of the podcast. So, Mama, please tell us what changed from the initial first 10 to this 180, and you would be reaching 200 very soon. So, what changed?
Well, I think the confidence level has changed, for me.
Yeah.
And what changes that I have more faith now that I know that this industry is growing, and people who have faith in me and they're coming along, I just do not want to let them down. That's that one mantra that I work with forever, because our people are who we have, when we take any business forward. And so, yeah, the changes is that I'm more confident. I am very sure that I will continue with this, because it gives me tremendous, joy in having conversations, which is so heart to heart with so many people across the world. And they open up and they talk about their journeys, they talk about their challenges, they talk about their inspiration. I'm only grateful. That's all.
Okay. Have you ever received some kind of feedback which just stayed in your mind or it touched your heart?
Yes, I've received a lot of feedback from people.
Okay.
And
So,
it always stays back, when they say that it was very easy to talk to me. They found empathy while they narrated their personal stories. And yeah, I'm extremely grateful for the good feedback. We haven't yet received any bad feedback yet. And I pray to God that we don't receive that ever.
okay.
And yeah, so, and we also, whenever I'm on the podcast, I try and be very cognizant about the fact that I allow, no, allow is the wrong word. I ensure that my guests share their stories, and I don't keep interrupting them, so that they can share their, viewpoint. I also try to very consciously not be judgmental, and let my listeners judge, because there are stories of a mother, who lost her son to suicide. There is stories about the queer community. There is stories about trans people. There are stories about people who've lost their children and they've gone on and changed their entire careers. They are change makers, who've
Yes.
changed the destiny around them. They've actually made their trauma into a triumph. So I try and remain as grounded as I can every time somebody shares a story, and I always fold my hand to the divinity above, saying that they are trusting me with this, and I need to honor that always.
Very, very nice. Okay. So you were a novelist, columnist, voice artist. So how do you balance these roles with your work on the Mohua show now? What skill helps you manage it, and what is your mantra? What is Mohua's mantra for balancing everything?
I don't need to balance too much because my son is now grown up and he lives, in London. So I don't think I would have been able to do all of this when, I was a full-time mom. So right now I'm married to my work, and so when you're
Okay.
married to your work, you make your work your spouse, and I thoroughly enjoy this. I'm either writing or I'm reading or I am watching a film to write a review, and this is what I enjoy, and it has taken me years to find my path. There is no going back right now. Balancing. Like I said, that when you are married to your work, I don't know what is balancing really. I don't know how to answer that. This is my
So,
life.
yes, by balancing, I meant, you still write, you are still doing the podcast. So, balancing your work as well, because as you said, your first love is writing and now into podcast. So, how do you maintain a balance and how do you find time to give equal respect to both the things?
That's all I do from morning to night. I write in a podcast. So so yeah, that's what I do.
Yes.
Like how people probably go into an office and they spend
Yes,
that many hours.
you have already answered by saying that this is like this whole thing is your spouse. So we
Yes.
understand that. So this is the priority and all that. How has your son look up to all this?
Children never take their mothers seriously, but yes.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, he's been a huge support in the sense that he's always egged me on. He's always encouraged me. And this time in London also, he was standing right there smiling at me. And yeah, I mean, it's wonderful to have a child who understands the
Yes,
joy of a reboot.
yes.
And let's say I'm very lucky.
That's good for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what. God
So
bless.
what new directions or innovations are you exploring for the Mahua show, and what is your vision in future with the show?
Well, I am exploring into bringing in many authors from across the world, and giving more opportunity to also specially abled authors. I think they need a platform, and that's what I want to do with the show. My vision is to have more brands come in and join us, so that it gets easier for me to, maintain the show, take the show forward. Because every day, like I said, it's a very dynamic space. It needs a huge amount of investments also, not just time and effort. It also needs monetary investment. We have monetized the show, and we are still, we still a lot more to go. And yeah, so my vision for the show is that I would like this to become like a magazine where we have different subjects to talk about. And so for anyone who's looking to find entrepreneurs, who are looking to find change makers, who are looking to read new authors, can just tune in from their mobile phones and go on to Spotify, or open up their laptop and listen to us from across the world. And yeah, that's what I dream of, making this show bigger than what it is today.
Yes. So, what would you tell to the generation, this generation who is like, exposed to so many channels, so many mediums? How do they stay focused, and how will your podcast help them to just have a direction in life?
I don't think, I'm the person to really give direction in life, because I was directionless at their age.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're young, you have this huge playground to really, learn new things, and discover yourself, make mistakes, and so for young people, I think you're very, very fortunate to have so much of content. Unlike us, we never had this sort of content that was just available at a fingertip. And
Yes.
with my podcast, definitely they can hear, like I said, they can hear industry leaders, they can hear authors, they can hear tips that people have shared on how they've been focused, how is it that they were successful. They can hear stories, narrated by so many of the amazing guests that we've had. And and every time you hear, the journey of another achiever, you will only learn. So
Yes.
and I hope that that would be the takeaway for them.
Yes. Definitely. So, author, podcast, what next?
What next? Maybe
What?
films.
Okay. Okay. So that's a very good future plan. That's maybe very soon we would have a film written by you, and definitely, yes, definitely looking forward to that. So before we conclude, any message or remark you would like to give our audience?
Thank you first and foremost. Thank you once again for having me here today with you. Um, that one message that I would give is that if you believe in something, don't give up. Please have the persistence. There will be times when you want to give it up because you know what, it isn't an easy journey when you start. And feel bad, cry, meet a friend, have a cup of coffee, buy a new dress, but go back to it. If your heart is fulfilled doing what you do, it will not fail you. And this has been my journey because there are days that I felt that, you know, what is it that I'm running after? Why is it that, you know, I really don't know whether the podcast industry will grow, but look at it, it has grown. The show has gone on to become a recognized show today. And yeah, it's wonderful. I think persistence, consistency, discipline, and to remain humility, you know, to remain humble and grounded because I don't know it all. Um, I need to every day learn, and if you are not going to, you know, sit on a, you know, high chair thinking that you know it all, you will definitely be successful because it's very, very dynamic. Every day there are new things that one can learn in this entire, you know, space of
Yes.
podcasting.
Yes. So thank you for this important message. Learn, relearn, find your purpose. So this is what the key takeaway I would deduct from this whole session and from all your talking. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you once again for joining us. This is Ashwini Rathi thanking you on behalf of the Nahar Jito Bookathon, which is presented in association with the Raisoni Foundation. Thank you for taking your time and thank you for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.